So just a disclaimer that, I mean, we are not experts in the topic, and we are sort of in a privileged position. I mean, living in Finland or Austria. It's but with that said, let's go to the topic. So how would you define burnout? What's the definition of burnout for you?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up first on the disclaimer. It's just what I wanted to say is that like because we are privileged and we are programmers and we live in Finland, and I guess we are all kind of been contracting, was me and Juho for a while. So we have like financial reserves. So burnout is much in a way would affect us, even though it sucks, would affect us much less than many other people. For example, I'm right now unemployed, and I'm okay with that. I can be unemployed for several months, and this won't be a big deal for me. But I imagine for lots of people, this won't be the case. So that's why I don't want to say that I'm the authority, that I'm an authority on burnouts, or that I can or that I'm a psychiatrist or psychologist who can help, and like that my experience even applies to other people. Because I don't want to speak for other people who had burnout and who were in much worse position than I was. But still, kind of, I wanted to just talk about it because maybe someone can learn from the mistakes I made.
Yeah, I think that's a good addition, because it's as we will learn, it's related to environment as well and the amount of control we have. So, but let's get back to the definition. So, what's your definition for burnout?
So for me, it's like extreme fatigue, or like repeated stress and the consequence of repeated stress that you get from work. So unlike depression, which can be caused by like other factors, I think the kind of the critical part that separates burnout from other similar conditions is that kind of it's often work related. And it's kind of when you talk about burnout, especially like in this industry, we talk about kind of burnout related to work. And I had this funny factoid that probably isn't true. The average software developer gets burnout when they're 33. So I'm kind of right on track because I'm 33 this year. So we got the burnout right in time. I'm quite sure it's not a true fact, but it is a very common issue in our industry, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's important to discuss the topic. Because my hope is that we make people more aware. And I think when it comes to life, you always tend to have these like turning points. I think for me, the first turning point was when I started writing books. So I did the startup work and whatever before that. Maybe it was a burnout or whatever, but I felt like I have to change the direction. So then I started writing, and I founded my company, and then we set up the conference, and now we're talking online about burnout. So it's this let's say you have turning points in life, and I guess for some people a burnout or experience of burnout is the turning point.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think like kind of also I can really empathize with the kind of wanting to do something else, because definitely every time I had the burnout, one of the big factors there was that you don't want to do work. Like the thing that you do, the work, it becomes almost like physically painful to do. Like you kind of force yourself to get to that table in the morning, and you procrastinate through half of the day, like kind of loathing the self-hate that you can't accomplish anything. And then you kind of like spend like half an hour working, do something, but then kind of as soon as you switch activity, as soon as you do something else, for me sometimes it was like doing a computer game, or like playing computer games, or like I don't know, playing music, all the kind of side activities. Suddenly you feel this rush of energy. Oh my God, this is like the best thing ever. I want to do this all the time. But then as soon as like your mind goes back to work, or like you might even like have a really nice vacation for a week, and then you go back to work, and this feeling of dread basically comes back to you, and you're like, oh my God, this is like the worst thing ever. I just can't like continue even for like a minute just sitting in the computer and working again, because it just kind of just hurts.
Yeah, I get the point, and I think for me, when I started writing, one of the big changes I made in my life is that I found this application. It's called Omnifocus. It cost some money, but in retrospect, it was the first. I mean, it was the best investment I made ever. I got huge return on the money because it let me, when you use the system to manage your life, organize your life a little bit, it means that you can push all the tasks from your mind. So you don't have to like remember that I want to do this and that on that and that time. Instead, I put everything into the system. I get projects, I get a long list of to-dos. I can plan things, I can time things. So this simple step alone, like dumping everything I had in my mind, the system, it enabled me to do a lot in the end. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I think one of the kind of, but for me, definitely one of the big challenges when you burn out is this feeling that you have a huge amount of stuff to do. Like this kind of, it's like this pressure that always comes at you that like, oh, I have this still to be done. And you always feel like you don't have energy to actually do them. You always kind of postpone them a bit. And this kind of like, gets into this huge kind of ball of things to do that just accumulate. And I think like focusing out and trying kind of just working on one thing without thinking about the other things that you have to do would definitely help. So maybe I should try that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge thing for me because it meant that every day, I mean, I felt like working, I will go to my list. I will start from a task, then maybe I will do another task. So I will always complete something. And even now this year, because I have a little less actual paying work, I'm working through my list. So I'm reducing the amount of items I have on my list. And then I'm making some progress. So it's sort of gamifying your life a little bit, but I don't mind.
That sounds great. And if I think this will work for me too. I have like very short attention span, and I think kind of gamification is the thing that kind of helps with that.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you had some specific experiences, and the first one had to do with the consulting company. So maybe you can tell your experience with this company you did, and how it went, and why you burned out in the end.
Sure. Like, yeah, I have, as I said, I have two stories in particular that I want to share. So the first one, I think it was 2018. So we already been doing consulting with in this company that I had for a while. We've been basically independent contractors, but we had like a partnership with a friend, and it was already going for several years, and it was going pretty well. Like we were really, when we made this company, we were really fed up with how stuff is in startups and how working, how kind of exhausting it is working in startups. Maybe that was also a burnout, but I think it wasn't as bad. So, but creating company was kind of was very kind of liberating in a way. And so that year we were kind of decided we're going to set our own goals in terms of revenue. Like us two partners would say, okay, we will earn this amount of money, so we plan to pay ourselves this amount of salary. And I put myself a pretty ambitious goal. I thought that, oh, everything is going great, I can do it. And then I suddenly had like a month of downtime. And it wasn't like a month of downtime that I planned. It wasn't a vacation. It was basically, I just didn't have a contract for months. And then this ruined this plan. This was around like April, I think, the year, or May. That really ruined the plan that I had for the revenue. And, I still wanted to have vacation. I still wanted to kind of take time off. But then I had this kind of revenue plan, and I already kind of missed it by months. And now I had to suddenly kind of figure out how I'm going to get back all that money so I can, pay myself the salary that I planned myself. And like I've like rushed like that for remainder of the year until like November. At that point, I started feeling that okay, now I have like, as I described before, like every time I went to work, I had this like feeling of dread that now I have to kind of stand up and go and do the work. And I really didn't want to do it, even though my contract was great and like I didn't even feel that like my job was bad or that there was like additional pressure from a job, but just the pressure from like the things that I set for myself, the pressure to kind of work just basically exhausted me so much that I couldn't continue working. So like it kind of resolved well. I like talked to my partner and we decided, okay, yeah, I'll just like, maybe pay a bit less salary, or like you can catch up next year. So like everything was resolved like with a 5-minute conversation. I didn't have, there was no problems, there were no issues. I could have done it like in May. I could have like reduced my goals, but instead I kind of kept checking along. I thought that, it's gonna be fine. I'll just have my vacation like next year. I'll spend some time relaxing later. I'll have time. It's important to earn money. I have my goals, and this got me into this cycle where I was like kind of being less and less productive, like falling ill and like having all these problems, while still chasing this kind of thing of like profitability. So yeah, that was like kind of the first thing where I was acutely aware. Okay, now I have a burnout. That was kind of
so in the end, I see now. So in the end, it had to do with this pressure you created for yourself by setting these goals, and then I feel this sometimes, but at the same time, I know that if I don't have a deadline for something, then it's tricky to get the thing I want done. So I guess there has to be some amount of pressure in life, but maybe not too much. If it's too much, then it's too much.
Ultimately, kind of, you always need to take vacations. You can't just check along. You can't just take like 5 or like 7 days vacations. You need to have proper breaks between work. Otherwise, you just never, at least I never actually get to actually relax. So I had like several vacations during that year, but they were all like really short. And I also had like, I think it was first year, I think we organized like React Finland, or like I participated in React Finland, and there was GraphQL Finland the same year. And then I talked at a couple of conferences. So I really set myself very ambitious goal with lots of things happening on all the sides, and that definitely wasn't kind of nice.
It's a lot of extra work to run conferences on the side, and I guess this field we can feel the pressure when I guess the point for us is that everything looked perfect around January or February, and then everything came crashing down in March, April. So sometimes it's just that things get blown up, even if you did almost everything right. So it's
Yeah. So, but like I said, you learn stuff from burnouts. Like it's not 100% bad. I like made some active changes to my life because of those. I've committed to take longer vacations. I've committed to like actively make sure I don't work too much. I've switched from contracting on like short-term contracts to being basically employed by an American company. So like it was contracted legally, but practically it was like employment. So I had full-time work, and I could take vacations, and there was like unlimited PTO policies. So it was all kind of good in this sense. And I felt that, I'm doing a good job in that. I'm doing a good job in not working too much. But like turns out that, it's burnout don't just only happen from overwork. And like after like 1.5 years or even more at the company, I felt even worse burnout, and I kind of like, and at that point I was like, oh my god, the first time wasn't even like a real burnout. Now this is a real burnout because it felt like so much worse. And I think this time it wasn't even from overwork, because like the amount of work that I did myself was kind of reasonable. I actually kind of, I think, made big strides in having a much better work-life balance this time. But there are other issues in companies that cause burnout. And I think in this sense, there are like 2 main things. First was that when I joined the company, I had a very I felt the company is really nice. I'm kind of a cynical person already because I've been working for a while. So every time I join a company, I'm like kind of defensive. I'm always like, okay, this sounds like good enough, but I'm sure that there are going to be some kind of a trick at the end and stuff will go bad. But here, after some time, I like kind of got 100% on board with the company. And I was like 100%, this sounds so great. Everything is good. All the people are nice, and the company is kind of caring about the right things. And it felt really good. It felt really good to believe in something. It felt really good to be in a company where you believe in like kind of the goodness of the company itself, even though it's kind of in a way probably impossible for a company to be all good. But at some point, just like with just like with Cinderella, the golden carriage sometimes turns into pumpkin. So here, the company also like really quickly turned into pumpkin, and that wasn't nice. Like nothing. Like I never realized how much it hurts to like expect a lot from the company and then have this expectation basically blown up repeatedly. And this was like a horrible feeling to kind of you still had it in your head that the company is supposed to be good, but then all the actions company did weren't matching that. And yeah, here I am, I guess, with the burnout from that. And I guess the second factor was trying to fix stuff inside the company. And I kind of got at some point promoted in the company. I became kind of technical leader, moved into technical leadership position, and it meant I had much more responsibility. But then when we get all this responsibility and you want to try to affect the change with responsibility, but I don't think in many cases people in those positions in the company were given like opportunity to affect the change. So all that kind of all that caused me to kind of burn out a lot, because like you get really bad burnout if you're constantly trying to change something in a place where you work, and then no change happens. You're like kind of you're struggling against this kind of wall of like I don't know lack of change, and kind of you break your knuckles against it and you start to bleed
I mean I had similar experience when I was in army. I mean just a long time ago, because we have this mandatory service in Finland, and it was a time when you have to decide if you're going to become an officer, or if you go to this officer program, or if you stay in the other program. I mean, not officer, I don't know what they call it. But anyway, one of the points they made is that if you become an officer, then you can change the system, or at least try to change the system. But when you're dealing with this kind of hierarchy or rigid structure, then it's like, can you believe into that? Can you believe that you might be able to change the system from inside? So it's I mean, I guess the point is, how do you find an organization that's a good fit for you? I mean, how do you interview for something like this? It's
it's a $1 million question, I think. It's really hard. I guess the way to do it is try not to kind of get into the position where you are too vulnerable to bad things happen inside the system. Like I mean, in a way, I guess being able to start as a contractor and kind of being able to quit at first for like several first months, it's in a way, unfortunately, very much about like privilege, because I'm able, for example, to join a company and leave them because I have a financial buffer. I am kind of in quite a big demand. I think lots of other people don't have this opportunity. They join the company and then they probably look to this company for some months. They might have mortgages, they might have like other debts, or like they just might need money to sustain themselves and their families. So in this sense, it's like I'm tempted to say like join the company, not like quit it, but it's like it is an option for me, but it's not an option for majority of people who are working, even in our industry. Even in industry where there's like a huge demand for developers, still it's not like everyone can just quit and find a new job. It's like a long process, and people have different kind of situations and different kind of positions. Like I wish I had an answer of how to act in this situation, how to like pre-screen the company, but I guess you can't. Maybe ask people inside the company. I guess that's why people,
So because I was curious about the topic, and the funny thing is that we have this national broadcasting company in Finland that you can access from abroad. So they actually have a lot of content online for free, and you can access anywhere. Only problem is that you need to know Finnish for most of the content. But I mean, that's not a problem for me because I'm a Finn. So I was watching this show about burnout. So they had two episodes, different stories about burnout. So I wanted to understand like artisan patterns, and it always came to the fact that it's you're doing something you don't want, or you're like forced into a position you don't want to be in, and it's work related, and it's something in the work environment. And there was this interesting example of an engineer. This engineer was working a lot, and then one day he came home, and the kid, he has a kid, and the kid came to him and was saying something, and he got really angry to the kid because the kid was interrupting him. So there was this interruption because he was thinking about work at home, and it was that point that he realized that now everything is not right. And that's when he went to doctor and found out that he has a burnout because he's too stuck in this work. So I guess the point was one point was this work-life balance. So I mean, how do you do it? How do you separate yourself from work? Did you ever encounter this, that all you do is work, or think too much about work, or never can relax?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that really helped is uninstalling Slack from the phone. Like at the beginning of my job, like the last job that I had before I quit, I've had a Slack on my phone, and then in the evening I often checked it. And at some point, my wife said that you're never here. Like in the evening, you're kind of in the Slack, and you're always distracted, and you're always thinking about work, and you always get super stressed. So I uninstalled Slack from the phone, and then kind of it really helped, like being able not to think about work. At least in some way, it helped not thinking about work.
Yeah.
So maybe like I think it's a big problem when you work from home, especially.
Yeah, I think in these times, because we're forced to work at home. So how do you draw the limit between your own time and the working time? It's really hard. And
I think having a separate workplace is the kind of the biggest kind of thing here. Like if you're able somehow to delimit, so like don't work on the couch. Like I think that's the kind of the big thing. Like don't go to the couch where you go in the evening and work there, because this will ruin your couch for you. Now this couch is your working couch.
Yeah.
Like if you have a room, like that's great. If you don't have a room, just set up some different table. Set like a small cheap table and work there. I mean, maybe it's not perfect. It's not ergonomic, but as long as you have like a separate place which just shaped with work, and then other places that you don't shape with work, I think everything will be much easier. At least at first. Later, I think you get used to working remotely, and you kind of learn to like add those boundaries. But at the beginning, it's really important to make sure you have those rituals that turn your brain into the right position.
Yeah, but that makes sense. In one of the cases, there was this, let's say, YouTube producer, and he really burned out in his work because he got to a new position in the company, and he got lots of responsibility, and he was working really a lot. And then it came to a stop. And then I think the main tip he gave is to leave the phone to work, or like I guess what you said was right, that we get a lot of distraction just by having the phone with us everywhere. And I had this time when I didn't even have Slack on my phone for a while, and maybe I should remove Slack again, because it's a lot of distraction and extra stress you don't need, because you get this, you're always online in a way. Yeah. To get back to yeah, sure.
Yeah, we just have like last 5 minutes. Maybe we should kind of make sure we cover the kind of some kind of conclusions.
Yeah, sure. So let's conclude this together a little bit. So a burnout, it's something work related, so that you feel overwhelmed or feel like everything is too much. Then it's a good time to stop and maybe discuss with someone. And burnout can come from different sources, and it's likely different for everyone. And you might experience something like this without realizing later that you had some kind of issue. And I guess one point is that it's always like, let's say, it's about life skills. So it might be an opportunity to learn to live maybe better or in a different way, or learn skills and techniques that help to avoid issues in the future. Do you have any specific tips in mind or something like that?
Yeah, I guess I think burnout is a real serious condition, and if we all, it's cool to listen to conference talks about it, and good to read about it, but it's also important to make sure that if you feel like you have burnout, you probably should try going to a professional about it and go to therapy and see if this helps, because this can be really serious. You might not have the same kind of, you might be as lucky as privileged as I am, and that you can kind of easily go through the burnout and kind of have opportunity to rest and spend time. So spend time off work. It's really important that if you are able to, and if you feel you have burnout, to kind of seek professional help about it.
Yeah,
and I also wanted,
yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I will finish my point after. Yeah. So you also wanted.
Yeah. So. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say that there are better resources about burnout than, I guess, me and Juho. There are some very nice podcasts. For example, there's Full Stack Health by Kurt and Amberly. That is by developers, and they talk to psychological health professionals and to people who experienced things like burnout. They have 3 episodes about burnout. So I think if you want to learn more about it, they are a very good resource.
Yeah, we will link to the resources later, so you can check. But it's I think it's one of the topics that we don't speak enough about, and I think it's great we have this session, and I think we can check out the questions soon and the poll. I guess did you have anything else in mind, or should we wrap up?
I guess we can wrap up and go to Q&A. But yeah.
Okay. So thanks for the session. It was great to have you here, and let's check out the poll next. Right. So now we have a number. So we have 90% say yes, that they had a burnout in their life. So what do you think of this?
Sounds about right. That makes sense, and it is a very common thing in all professions. I think especially in our profession.
Yeah, but I guess the question is, does it have to be so? Because 90% for me, it sounds like a really high figure. It should not be that high.
I think maybe that now we are at the point where we finally start talking more about mental health in general, and good working environments. I think we've been kind of not caring about those things a lot, especially in Finland, I guess. This kind of a new topic, and I think those numbers might improve, and I think we'll maybe start kind of both people, us as people who might experience burnout, be more aware of how to kind of catch it beforehand, and also kind of workplaces being better at not putting people in a position where they overwork or where they have kind of responsibility and no control. So yeah. I hope those numbers will go down. I think it's definitely it shows how prevalent this issue is, and how I think something needs to be done to improve.
Yeah, and it can be that maybe there's some stigma around the issue, that people are scared to raise their hand up, that maybe we should discuss or change something in the workplace. So, but yeah, we have this time we have questions from the audience. So let's check out the first one. So someone was asking, do you have any tricks to avoid burnout, especially when it comes to programmers?
Well, I thought I did before my second burnout. When it was my first burnout, and after that I thought I know it now. I'm aware of how burnout feels like. Next time I will not fall into this trap. And here I am again with a burnout. So I don't have any particular tricks. Take vacations. Make sure you separate work life and home life. Don't focus on work 100% of time. And I think most importantly, kind of work doesn't have to define you. You don't have to care about work as the most important thing in your life. I think in many cases you would be able to feel better and kind of burn out less if you learn to not to like kind of if you learn not to detach yourself from the work you do. And it's hard, and I fail at it all the time. But kind of I think at the end, like, work is not you. You're like, and you are more important than your work. So like always prioritize yourself.
Yeah. I guess my point will be to somehow learn to listen yourself, because if something doesn't feel right, maybe it's time to ask why not, what's wrong. There's a second question. So what do I do when I feel burnt out? Is there any advice so that I don't have to turn my whole life upside down? What would you do when you feel burnt out?
Maybe try to take a break, like see if you can take a vacation, like a kind of couple of days off. Also, possibly try figuring out why you have a burnout. It could be through therapy. Maybe consider going to a therapist and talking to them about it, or just talking to people you can talk to your relatives or to your friends, and kind of maybe figure out if you can deduce why you have a burnout, which particular part of your work is too much work. Then you can like reduce the workload. If it's kind of lack of control, maybe you should talk to the manager and kind of express the things. I mean, I think sometimes, again, like if you can, sometimes you would arrive at the conclusion that the work is just so toxic that you can't stay there, and you have to quit, and you'll have to make a decision yourself. And as we discussed before, it's kind of not always possible for everyone, but it's in some cases you just can't do anything except quitting.
Yeah, I see. I mean, in one of the cases in the TV show, there was this YouTube producer. So what he did, he took a long break from the work just to get back to normal. So he has the energy comes back. You know, you lose your will to do anything, and then at some point you want to start doing things again. So he got to that point, and then he went to his employer. They found a position that's more fitting for him. And first he started doing 1 day per week, then 2 days per week, 3 days per week, 4 days per week. And that felt like that works. So he works 4 days per week, 3 days he takes care of himself. So he found some kind of balance with the existing employer. So he's doing a little different work than before, but he's still contributing a lot and he enjoys the work.
So I mean, if you have opportunity to do that, this is of course perfect. I don't think all employees are going to be as flexible. I think that's the biggest problem. In many cases, the issue is not that. Of course, probably there could have been like a solution to this, but I think from like employer point of view, sometimes they're not willing to go as far.
Yeah, it's really tricky. Yeah, but I guess over time, employers have to become more flexible on this as well. Absolutely. Or that's what I hope. I mean, in one case, this engineer he quit his job, started doing engineering, and because he had this passion for woodwork, so he started doing woodwork in his garage. He set up a business, and he agreed with his wife that the wife will take care of the financial responsibility. Wife will bring money to the home, and he will focus on his business. I mean, his wood business, and it somehow worked out. And he started doing engineering as a consultant on the side. So he's still, even with full stop and with focus on something else, he went back to engineer a little bit. So, but for him, it was a big life change. There's one more question about this, like mini tips. Like it's not, he's saying that, or she's saying that it's not always possible to take a break or go on a vacation or take a holiday. Is there anything small that you could do that will bring results? Like what will be a minimal step to improve the situation if you're in this position?
Just make sure you sleep enough. I don't know. It's kind of a very banal thing. I mean, you need to kind of look at the problem as a whole, but you know, taking care of your normal health is important too. So like, I think if you can't do anything, you can take a break, you can take a vacation, you can take some days off. making sure your like physical health is good might help. Like at least it helps, during depression. To exercise. Some people, not for everyone. To exercise, to make sure you sleep enough. That might help. But kind of, it's also important to understand that, for example, for me this year, even though there's coronavirus, lots of like kind of good things happened, and I've like lost weight, and I like feel much better physically, and outside of work, I feel much happier than I felt like last year. But this didn't prevent me from having a burnout. So sometimes it's like you can do all the good things outside of work, but still work would be bad enough to cause a burnout. So kind of, I think that if you feel you're getting burnout, you should try to figure out a way to take some time off.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially sleeping enough. I think if you start losing sleep, and then you lose your energy and you don't get the things done, and then you get stressed out because you didn't get things done, and then you sleep less, so you can get into this really bad cycle. So it's important to take care of yourself, and exercise it's of course important. I mean, for me, especially in the past, it was important to go to the nature, and because you sort of get out of your like where you currently are. So you go for a nice couple of hour hike, or even just a short walk. I mean, that's my mini tip, is that just taking that 15-minute walk outside, it can really refresh you a little bit. But of course, it's not the solution to the problem, but it's better to, like, instead of playing games for 15 minutes, it's better to take a short walk or do something with your body. Like some say maybe yoga or whatever, but just activate.
But whatever helps you, whatever helps you. Some people like mindfulness, some people like exercise. Like whatever helps you with your general like kind of mental health, this will help you at least in some sense with burnout. But I think kind of you need to eventually solve the underlying problem, and I think it involves like taking time off, and it involves possibly going to a therapist and talking over to figure out what exactly is the problem at your workplace.
Yeah. So I think we are about done with the session. So thanks for the discussion. I think it was very interesting, and I think we're gonna move on to the panel next.